As a kid, I used to love watching this one particular horror movie. It was about a hotel in the desert where people would go missing only to be found years later as children. I don't remember much of the plot, but it didn't matter, because every time I watched it, it gave me the same feeling, an impending sense of doom. The type of dread that seeps into your bones and makes the hairs on the back of your neck stand on end. There was something undeniably eerie about the thought of a place existing where people could vanish without a trace, only to resurface as kids. I'd always wondered if such a place really existed, if there were parts of our world where the laws of nature and time itself were just a little bit different. Then one day, while I was on holiday with my family, we decided to visit a remote hotel out in the middle of the desert. We'd been driving for hours and we were all exhausted. So when we finally saw the sign advertising the hotel, we felt a surge of relief. It was one of those old-fashioned kind of establishments that seemed like it had been around forever. The paint on the walls was chipping and the windows were dusty. But as we walked inside, we couldn't help but feel a sense of intrigue. The lobby was almost empty, just a few pieces of furniture and a large mirror on one wall. As I approached it, I noticed something strange. My reflection wasn't showing up. At first, I thought it was just a trick of the light, but then I realized that the mirror wasn't actually showing any reflections at all. My dad cleared his throat and stepped closer. His face stared back at him, distorted and pale. Then just like that, he vanished. 1 second he was standing in the lobby, and the next, he was gone. My mom screamed and tried to grab onto him, but it was too late. He had disappeared. I was frozen in fear, unable to move or speak. Then suddenly, my mom was there, kneeling beside me, her face streaked with tears. "It's okay," she whispered, pulling me close. "It's going to be all right." But I knew that she was lying. I could feel it in my bones. That same dreadful premonition that I'd felt when watching that old horror movie as a kid was now enveloping me, squeezing the air from my lungs. As I looked around, I noticed other guests in various states of panic, some screaming, others frozen in terror. And then they too, like my dad, they just vanished. My mom tightened her grip on me, her knuckles turning white. She was scared, really scared. And in that moment, I knew that whatever was happening here, I needed to protect her. I pulled away from her, forcing myself to stay calm. We had to get out of there. I started to run, pushing past the dusty windows and out into the harsh desert sun. As I stumbled through the shimmering heat waves, I felt something brush against my leg. A lizard, I told myself, trying to quell the growing fear. But then I heard a voice, a small, raspy voice that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. "Help me," it whispered, and then another voice. "Save me." They sounded like children, but why? Why were children's voices echoing through the empty desert? Suddenly, the ground beneath my feet shifted, and I felt myself falling into a dark, dank hole that seemed to stretch on forever. I screamed for my mom, for anyone, but there was no reply. Only the sound of my own voice echoing back at me. Then, just as suddenly as I fell, I landed on soft sand. Disoriented, I sat up and looked around. To my horror, I was in a dark, narrow corridor that seemed to be made of flesh. It was pulsating slightly, like a living thing, and then I saw them. My dad and the other guests, but they weren't the same. They were younger, like me. We were all children again. And then I remembered the movie, the one I'd watched as a kid. This was it. This was the place where people went to die, where the desert claimed them and turned them into children. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. I wanted to run, but my legs wouldn't move. I was trapped, just like them. And as the flesh walls started to close in on me, I knew that I was about to become a child again, too. About to relive the life I'd already lived and die again. And then I woke up. Gasping for breath, I looked around frantically, searching for my mom. She was kneeling beside me, her face etched with worry. "You were screaming," she whispered, relief flooding her features. "You were talking about children and a desert." I nodded, unable to speak. Still shaken by the dream, I looked at my mom, really looked at her, and for the first time, I saw the lines on her face, the gray streaks in her hair. In that moment, I understood. The desert doesn't just take you, it keeps you. It holds you in its grasp until you're nothing but a whisper of your former self. We never did find out what happened to my dad, but sometimes when I look at my mom, I see a flicker of something in her eyes, a haunting emptiness that tells me she'll never truly be free of that desert either.